Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Jason is engineering the broadcast at Genesis Communications Network in Minnesota. Website, GCNlive, Live.com. GCN, as in Genesis Communications Network, Live.com. If you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call, 866-582-9933. If you'd like to listen, telephone listen line is up, 712-770-9418. 712-770-9418. That's provided by Global Star. And Global Star is kind enough to put us on their satellite. Had some extra space, and they thought that USA Prepares is what they should be using that space on the satellite for. Thank you very much, Global Star. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm a little frosted. You know why? Guineith, I think I think I am a total and complete failure in, still nothing new here in getting people to prepare for their own survival. Not mine. Theirs. I just can't wake up people. It's impossible. You can reason with them. You can talk to them. You can give them the facts, the statistics, the numbers, the who, the what, the why, the when, the how, and they still won't prepare for themselves. And what I'm talking about is simply telling people that the coronavirus is absolutely, positively real. There are all kinds of theories. There are theories about, it's designed to take down Donald Trump. It's designed to keep people from voting for Democrats. It's designed to take down the U.S. economy. It's designed to take down the Chinese economy. It's designed to take down the world population. Well, it could be all of those. But the point is, we really don't know. It's all speculation. It's all theory. But what we do know is people are dropping like flies and people are getting sick. And when you hear that there's only, a couple people here and a couple people there who have died, and, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is the supply chain. That's the big deal. And if, they say that, look, this only, maybe 2 people or 1 person out of 100 will actually die if that person contracts the coronavirus. Only, 1 or 2 out of 100 would die. What's the big deal? That is, if it's only 1, it's 100 times worse than the typical flu. 100 times worse. So that's what the big deal is. And it's spreading like wildfire. And really, there's panic buying. I call this the corona panic. Back in 1929, the stock market crash was called the panic of 1929. The president didn't like it back then. So he renamed it. He said, no, that's pretty scary. We can't call it panic. So we'll just call it a depression. People are a little depressed. They were jumping out of windows. They were so depressed. Killing themselves because they were so depressed. They lost everything because of the manipulation of the market by the greedy international and U.S. bankers. That's what happened. Well, and of course the people who bought stocks on margin, they were greedy too. So you put all that together and you had the panic of 1929, which lasted all the way until World War II. And what cured the panic? A world war. So some people think that this panic, the corona panic, is designed to eliminate population. I've got to agree with that. No question in my mind. This is designed to eliminate population. So it's a pretty frightening thing. And anyone who minimizes it is not paying attention, well, I guess we could call them an idiot, or we call them morons. But the bottom line is I have been a failure in getting people to wake up, in my opinion. Guineith, your thoughts. Have you been as successful?
No. I don't seem to make people see.
Yeah.
You know, how serious this is. And I point out that I have studied epidemiology and virology at the University of Melbourne, which is where the main scientists who seem to be studying this thing in Australia, they all seem to have been trained at the University of Melbourne. They're all about my age, and that means that they were probably in my class. And yeah, which means that, you know, like, we got the same information, and yet I told people about that, and they say more or less, well, so what? So what? And I say, well, it's like this. You know, you're going to be facing something in a little while. You're going to, and, you know, I was even discussing this with my son, and I said, this has happened over and over again in world history, where, let's take it on a purely economic level, okay? Well, there was the bubonic plague. Well, we won't take it on the purely economic level. Let's go to the example of the bubonic plague. When the bubonic plague hit Europe, in some waves of the plague, 90% of the population died. That's 90%, meaning 9 out of 10 people died of the bubonic plague. They were pulling guys out of their houses dead and lying them on the street. And a guy would come along with an ox cart, and he'd say, bring out your dead, with a bell. And then, you know, they'd load up the ox cart and take them outside the city somewhere and dig a whopping great hole and then bury them. And, you know, people don't seem to realize that that sort of thing is actually really possible. In fact, you know, oh my gosh, we are actually much more vulnerable now than we were back then, because back then about 90% of the people knew how to be farmers. Does that make sense, Vincent? And they knew how to live in the countryside, and they knew how to hunt, and they knew how to fish, and they knew how to run a trap line. But they don't now. They knew how to keep livestock, they knew how to ride horses, they knew how to make stuff. But they don't now. So it was fairly easy, even if you had 9 out of 10 people die back in the day, to rebuild. And they did rebuild their cities. The plague would go away. And then, you know, within a few years, they'd begin to rebuild their cities. And then within 80 years, the population was back at the same level. I don't think that's going to happen this time. I think that this time, nobody knows how to do anything anymore. And that, you know, I've heard some people commentate on this, saying that this is the first horseman of the apocalypse. And we've got 3 horsemen to go, and the horsemen follow each other on each other's heels. So, if I remember correctly, you know, there's, you know, there was a horseman of plague, and there was a horseman of war, and there was a horseman of famine, and there was a horseman of economic catastrophe. Okay? So I think we've just seen the horseman of plague come, you know, which is, you know, I guess death, to be putting it bluntly. You know, we don't like to talk in the West about death. We find death is embarrassing. But guess what? Death is out there. And for a lot of people, death is going to be coming for them. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Yeah, it certainly does. And I was thinking about this morning, in the wee hours of the morning, and I was thinking that what's the difference between us and the GDP? The difference between us and most people. When I'm talking about us, I mean USA Prepares as a whole. And let's take you and Rich Sheban, for example, Kyle, Joey. If we want to get warm, we might have to build a fire. If we want to build a fire, we might have to cut some wood. If we want water, we might have to make sure that well pump is put in. We might have put it in ourselves. If we want to raise animals, we have to do it and build the fence. So if we want it done, we have to do it. Now, if we don't do it, we might freeze to death or die of thirst or die of starvation. So we actually look at what's happening. And if there's a hole in the fence and the animals can get out and we don't take care of it, then the animals get out. Now we have a bigger problem. So we look at things differently from the GDP. We try our best to prevent problems from occurring, like the holes in the fence and like making sure that we have the well pump and the well pump supplies, because sometimes the animals need water, like the cows. And the cows drink about 30 gallons of water a day each.
Wow.
So, yes. So if the well pump were to quit and we were in a drought situation, we could lose all the cows. Because, there are ponds and there are streams, and that works really well. But in a drought, the ponds get really low, dry up, the streams stop running, the creeks stop running, and if the well pump quits, now we're really in trouble. Okay, so we look at those things and we prepare for them. Maybe another well might be nice. Maybe a catchment system from the roof, if it ever rained during a drought, might be nice. So that's how we look at things. I mentioned with Norm Shealy, we're talking about dandelions, and dandelions are great. Now, in the suburbs, people can't stand those yellow flowers popping up in their yard because they think it's unsightly. Here at our farm, if the cows eat it, it's not a weed. If they'll eat it, we're okay with it. So yellow dandelions, I'm going to plant dandelions in our fields all over because they're edible and they're nutritious. But that's a completely different thinking from the GDP. GDP would not like to have dandelions. They might actually even complain about their neighbors having dandelions on their yards. Look at the Jones. Do you see their yard? How terrible that looks? Look at all those dandelions. What's wrong with them? What's wrong with the Jones family because they have dandelions? Really? Maybe that would be salad for, a month. Guineith and I will be right back after these few short commercial announcements. Now, it looks like both of us have been failures in getting people to prepare. Class, what I'm about to say will sound braggadocious. It may sound self-serving. I don't mean it to be that. But I'm just going to tell you just one example of how little concern there is about preparedness for the coronavirus, which is on the verge of being declared an outbreak or a pandemic. Here we go. So, USA Prepares is the largest and longest running preparedness broadcast. It is. And we have been broadcasting off-grid for years, generating power for my end right here of the broadcast for years. Off-grid, generated power by the sun. The question I have for Guineith is, Guineith, how many of USA Prepares instructors, of which there are a lot, do you think have been asked to appear on other broadcasts to teach preparedness? Other broadcasts, other networks, other programs. How many of us do you think have been asked to appear on other broadcasts to teach people what to do in this time of the pending pandemic or the outbreak? How many would you think? The number is staggering.
One or two. Just a few.
Zero.
Not many.
Zero. Zero.
Zero.
Zero. Zero.
Wow.
What I'm trying to say is that is how bad it is. That is how careless people are. That is how they are not paying attention to what's around them. We can't get them to go to the store to buy 49-cent cans of beans by the case, or even get a little extra. Forget buying by the case. You have, we have, Joey has, Norm has. The instructors have done this. You know, we talk, and we know how bad it can be. Now, the worst case is we'll have to use that toilet paper. We'll have to use those paper towels. We'll have to eat those cans of beans. That's the worst case. If we're wrong. It doesn't look like we're wrong. It really looks like factory output is down in China, and they make everything. There's hardly anything that you can buy that doesn't come from China. And I've been taken to task a little bit about my position on the homos. Well, I say that they are greedy. The homos are reckless because they like to feel good. Well, let me give you an example of some people say what they do, you know, in the privacy of their own homes. Well, that's okay. Well, it's not okay. It's not okay with me, and it's not okay with a president to be a homo, like Pete What's-His-Butt wanted to be president. I'm glad he's out. But let me give you an example of reckless behavior by a homo in a high position. The guy who runs Apple, his name is Tim Cook. He's a card-carrying homo. This is public information. I'm not telling anything that's not publicly available. Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, has been advised by Apple employees, hey, look, Tim, let's not put all of our eggs in the Chinese basket. Let's have manufacturing outside of China. Now, it costs a little bit more money to do that. But Tim Cook bet all of Apple on China. That's reckless. That's careless. That's beyond stupid to me. Because if China goes upside down, Apple is toast. Right now, there are shortages of Apple products. They're trying to figure out how they're going to make this work with the Chinese factories being shut down. I'm being serious. That is greedy. That is, yeah, but we can get it made cheaper in China. These are my opinions, class. That's reckless behavior. I don't want people like that running the United States of America. I don't want people like that running the town that I live near, a town of 100 people. These guys are dangerous. They're greedy. They don't think. Or they think with their weenie. I might get some backlash from this, and I don't care. I really don't care. If today's my last day, I don't care about that either. We'll be right back. Okay. Guineith Isaacs is with us, live in Australia. Guineith, any comments about what I said?
Yeah, rampant homosexuality has destroyed multiple civilizations through the history of the world. It destroyed the civilization at Sodom and Gomorrah. It destroyed the civilization at Pompeii and Herculaneum. And, it's destroyed many, many others all through society. And people are, living in a la-la land if they think that this can't happen again. And, it's something that it dooms a society within one generation because, for one thing, people stop having children. because they don't want, well, for one thing, man versus man, or man with man or woman with woman is not going to make a family, you know, and the other thing is that pedophilia goes through the roof every time that you get a normalization of homosexuality. And so you get people who do want to have children. They either move right away from the people who are homosexual because they don't want their children to be, you know, sexually abused. There's, you know, and I've heard people, you know, homosexual people say, oh, yeah, but we're not all like that. And I say, yeah, it's like this. I know a few homosexual people personally, and I don't know any that were not sexually abused as children. Okay? Not all homosexuals are child molesters, but a good proportion of them are. And, you know, this is it. Yeah, and all of the homosexual people that I know were abused as children. And, you know, it's something, it destroys a society from the inside out. It destroys the family. It destroys the, you know, relationships between, like, for instance, uncles and nephews. Uncles and nephews in a society where homosexuality is rampant cannot have a normal relationship because there cannot be that trust between the uncle and the nephews that would otherwise be there. Does that make sense? And people are just not thinking about it.
It absolutely does make sense. What about uncles and nieces?
Yeah.
What if the uncles are homos? What about the nieces? Do they get damaged too?
Yeah, that too. And the thing is, the trust goes away between family members and between kin. And, yeah, because you can't, you learn that you can't trust people. You can't have something like a normalization of friendship between members of your same sex. Because if you have a close friend who's a member of your same sex, then people are going to assume things that might not necessarily be true, you know? And that's just, so you end up with a society where family members can't trust each other. Nobody can have best friends anymore. And, you know, you have a society where, you know, parents can't trust anybody else in the community with their children, even if they are good, righteous and virtuous people themselves. It's an ongoing battle to stop their children from being molested. And, you know, it came out on the Alex Jones show yesterday. Tommy Robinson came on the Alex Jones show. This isn't homosexuality, but it is pedophilia. That he was having a bit of a day out with his kids at a 5-star hotel. They'd been invited there by some people that they knew who thought they needed a break, and they were hanging out by the hotel swimming pool. And this particular person comes along and willfully touches Tommy Robinson's daughter on the bottom. And he goes up and he says, you know, his daughter comes to him and says, Daddy, 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 this man did this to me. And so Tommy Robinson goes up to them and confronts them about it. And they try to deny it. And then they run away. And then they say, oh, we're sorry, we're sorry, we're sorry. And then what happens then is Tommy Robinson, they try to leave. Tommy Robinson stops them from leaving and says, I'm calling the police on you. And so Tommy Robinson calls the police, and the police come along and they arrest him for reporting on a couple of pedophiles. You know, that's the level that just makes me angry. That just makes me so angry. And like I say, this is what happens. It's not just homosexuality, but homosexuality always brings pedophilia with it. It just happens that way. It's just how people work. And even if someone's not a homosexual and they are a pedophile, the effect is much the same. And that the police came and arrested him for it. And he's not even allowed to name the pedophile that molested his daughter. Because if he does, then the police will lock him away. And, something, when I heard that, I just got really, really pretty angry. I really did. And, oh my gosh. I hardly even have words to say. Similar things happened to me in the past with my sons when they were younger. Nobody would dare do that to them now because my oldest son is about 6'3" or 6'4" and does mixed martial arts for a hobby. I don't think if anyone tried to hurt him or tried to hurt his brother, he'd probably break their neck. Okay, he wouldn't mean to. He's just so big and so strong. But, he wouldn't be able to, help himself. That's just what would happen. You'd probably just just put them in a neck lock or something and not meaning to do them any harm. But do you know what I mean, Vincent?
Oh, I absolutely positively do know what you mean. All of our children have been to martial arts, and they are absolutely capable of defending themselves against multiple attackers. And I've said on air that if Mrs. Finelli went to, we'll just call it the Chinese factory outlet ladies' room. Okay, let's say she went in there, and one or both of the boys, or all three of us men in the family, were there, and if some transgender guy that wants to be a girl and look under the stall for jollies went in there, there would be a lot of screaming and blood if that happened. We would not tolerate that. We're not going to tolerate that. Homos are not allowed on our property. I don't want them here. And if you, and the reason I keep talking about this is you can't trust them. You can't trust them. They are so in tune with themselves and feeling good. It's really important to them, I believe, that I would not be able to trust a homo here at the farm as things get worse. Just say, okay, so here are the tasks for today. The morning meeting. Here's what we have to do today. Here are the assignments. Who wants to do what? If you don't want to sign up for it, then we'll sign it to you. I have a feeling that the homos would be the least trustworthy. That's my feeling. Now, of course, we could get calls and say, oh, no, I know some homos are really good people. I hear that all the time. But they're twisted and perverted. They are. And I don't want them anywhere around me. And I don't want to be hearing noises in the night with their homo buddies or their homo gals. I don't want it. And you know what? I got to tell you, I think we're the only broadcast that talks about this kind of stuff. I think all the other broadcasters are afraid to. What are they afraid of? Losing their position on the radio? Is that why they don't talk about what's important? Is that why? See, I don't care about that. I got rid of all of our advertisers. We don't have it. USA Prepares does not have a single advertiser. Nobody can call me and say, hey, Vinny, if you don't stop talking about whatever, we're going to stop advertising with you. That cannot happen. That's an impossibility because we don't have any advertisers. Not one. Not one. I gave back all the time that we had. We had 6 minutes of our own advertising. I gave all of that back to the network in favor of talk time. So instead of 6 minutes of advertising, we have 6 minutes of talk time. I thought that was a great trade. I don't think any other broadcaster's ever done that. I don't think any other broadcasters thought about doing that. But we're all volunteers. We're not here for money. We're here because we think it's the right thing to do. Maybe that's why our God put us on, one of the reasons that our gods, our individual gods, have put us here on the planet is to share with you things that we think can help you. That's why we're here. There's no money in this. None. It actually costs us money. It costs every one of us money to be on the air. And if it doesn't cost us money that we can count, it costs us opportunity money. Because we could be doing something else. I could be chasing cows, planting dandelion seeds. I could be doing other things. And so could Guineith Isaacs. Guineith could be chopping wood, drawing water, training her horse.
Sleeping.
Feeding her horse. Patching the roof.
Sleeping.
Sleeping. Because
it's 2:45 in the morning here.
Yeah, it's dark 30 over there.
You know something, Vincent. There's something really, really interesting here that you've pointed out. These, people who do things because they want to feel good. Okay, I'll tell you what actually happened just a bit earlier on this evening, okay, because it rained here. And I can tell you what, I've got a rain routine, okay, and shall I tell everybody about my rain routine?
Sure, please do. Class, just for those who don't know, Guineith Isaacs lives on a farm in Australia without grid-connected electricity. She generates her own electricity. If it's sunny, she has it. If it's dark, she doesn't. She draws her own water, makes her own repairs, builds her own fence. She lives in a mud brick farmhouse. She does it all the hard way, the way it used to be done. But she wants to do it that way. We'll be right back, and she'll tell you about water. In Australia, Guineith Isaacs. Guineith, you're going to tell us about water.
Okay. When it rains here, what I have to do, because we live in a eucalyptus forest, even if it's just a few weeks, the gutters get leaves in them. I have to go up on the roof. I should actually do this before it starts raining, but usually, it's often a long time between rainstorms. Sometimes it's months between rainstorms. I go up and I clear the leaves out of the gutter so that the water will actually go into the tank and so that the gutter won't overflow. And then after I've done that, I take my spade and I go for a walk in the rain, and I go down the farm tracks, which are also the drainage lines on the property. That's where the water flows down into the various ponds and dams and soaks, okay, that are dotted about the land. And at some points I know that I've dug a gutter so that it flows off of the road into a particular, like I said, dam, pond or soak. And, but sometimes I have visitors and sometimes they have motor vehicles. I mean, I get deliveries and, they drive over these, gutters, and sometimes there's erosion that happens and they overflow and then the water flows down. If I don't go down there with my spade and repair them, then, that I'm not going to get any water flowing into that dam, pond or soak. And so I go down there and I, repair them in the rain. And you might say, well, why do you do that? I say, because the soil has to be wet here before you can do anything with it. Because if it's not wet, it's going to be the consistency of concrete. And you literally cannot dig it because it is granite soil and you can't do anything with it. Or you can if you spend 10 or 15 minutes hacking away at it. So you have to dig it in the rain. And that's what I do. And I go around and I check to make sure the water is flowing into all of the various places on this 20 acres of land that it's supposed to be flowing into. And this evening it rained, and I did this, and it took me 2 hours of walking around the block, and I would have walked several kilometres, backwards and forwards, through the forest, up this track, down that valley, whatever, all over the land. And it's 20 acres. It's a fair-sized block. And it's not just 20 acres of flat country, it's 20 acres of eucalyptus forest with an understory. And a lot of the places that tend to collect water, some of the places, it took me years to even realise that I was there, because at some of the places on the block there is a fairly thick scrub understory. But once I'd found them, I cleaned them out and I improved the flow into them. And, saw where the water was coming from. But I had to go and I had to check all of these. And by the time I got back in, I was soaking to the skin, soaking wet to the skin. I had to take everything off, put new clothes on, and, and could you imagine somebody who was selfish and self-centered doing that?
Absolutely not. And class, let me explain what Guineith is saying. And we do the same thing here. Absolutely, we do the same thing. When it rains, we look at the puddles and we look at the flow of water. And what that tells us, the rainwater becomes a level. When I say level, let's say you're going to hang a picture or you're going to frame a building. Use a level to make sure everything is vertical, horizontal, and plumb. Okay, well, the rain does that. Okay, so it tells you what's low and what's high and where there are depressions. And we use the puddles to figure out which way, what the level is, and we redirect. We redirect the land by digging little trenches, and sometimes they're only a few inches deep, sometimes they're deeper, so that we can direct the water flow into the ponds to collect the water. That's what farmers do. You direct water away from where you don't want it. You direct water toward where you do want it. And the rain, the puddles, shows you the flow of water. And you can make that work for you, or you can make it work against you. And we don't like to fight nature. It's too hard. It's too big. So we work with nature. As a matter of fact, we have an armadillo that is right outside the farmhouse. And he's digging holes everywhere, little holes, little depressions. And we're not gonna dissuade him from doing that. It's great because these little depressions collect water for the grass that the cows eat. That's what farmers do if they pay attention. But in the city, no, we got to kill these critters because they're digging holes. Think about that. Guineith Isaacs and I, and as well as other instructors, work with nature because we'll go under if we try to fight nature. We'll be right back. Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Class, the corona panic has already begun in Missouri as well. And toilet paper, you won't see as much toilet paper available, and you won't see as much in the area of paper towels either. Guineith, you mentioned on an email about Channel 9 in Australia. Would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, Channel 9 in Australia is a big national network. It was founded by a fellow called Kerry Packer back in the day, and he's passed on now, and his millennial son is, or Gen X's son rather, is holding the reins. But it's still a very good television network. And they've got a lot of important information on the coronavirus, including that, store shelves are going empty here in Australia as well. And I went into Bendigo yesterday. I had a few really important things I needed to get, to do with survival and to do with the coronavirus and to do with some horse gear that needed replacing. It goes back to the thing of the thing that you talk about of a few key parts, and I had a few key parts of tack that I realised were near the end of their life, needed replacing. And I thought I'd better do it because if I waited, then I might not be able to get them. But anyway, Channel 9 has been putting out some really, really important coronavirus information, and if anyone wants to know what's happening in Australia, they're probably the best source, and they have a YouTube channel. So if you go onto YouTube and you type in Channel 9 Australia, then coronavirus, then you should get their latest coronavirus updates. And I'm really glad of that because they're actually doing a better job than our national broadcaster who should be doing this job. That the ABC is just so full of lefty loons that they're not much good at all anymore, actually, except for being politically correct. They seem to be quite good at that. But Channel 9 has been reporting that there's been empty store shelves in Melbourne, and I've had people on I'm still on Facebook, and I've had people friends in Bendigo who have been saying that there were empty store shelves in Bendigo. And I went into Bendigo yesterday, to get these few things, and I went into a supermarket. Personally, I didn't see any empty store shelves, but I know why. Because I went in on a Wednesday, early on Wednesday morning, and I can tell you that they fill up their supermarket shelves on Tuesday night when the store is shut. Okay? And they do that because a lot of people get their Social Security checks here on a Wednesday and on a Thursday. So they fill up the store shelves on the Tuesday for all the pensioners and unemployed people and people on disability benefits who go in to do their grocery shopping when their unemployment check or whatever comes in. And so, but I fully believe it because I've seen photos that have been taken by friends of mine that they posted onto Facebook of the empty store shelves in Bendigo earlier on this week. And you know something, when that begins to happen, when you begin to see panic buying and grocery runs on grocery items, then you know that unless something changes really, really quickly for the better, that you are within a matter of weeks of riots in the streets and more or less systemic collapse. So if you look at what's happening in Wuhan, you can say that that's probably going to happen here within between 2 and 4 weeks, you know. And about 2 weeks ago, we were saying that within about 2 weeks we'd be seeing empty store shelves. Isn't that right, Vincent?
That's absolutely right. Absolutely correct.
Isn't it right that I was saying about 2 or 3 weeks ago that in about a month's time from then, which is about 2 weeks from now, we would probably be seeing something like a systemic collapse unless things change pretty quickly for the better. Didn't I say something like that?
Yeah, and yes, and here's my take on this, class. So you've probably seen the news where Costco in New York, near New York City, there were lines and people were panic buying, and Sam's Club as well. That's made the news as well. And the way I look at this is people who have businesses typically buy in bulk. So if there is let's say a bagel shop. I met a guy at Sam's Club and he was buying, this was years ago, he was buying bags of high gluten flour. And he said that he had a bagel shop and this is where he buys his flour. So that's just one little tiny speck of an example of the kinds of customers that Sam's Club and Costco have. People buy in bulk. And if you want to buy styrofoam cups for beverages, you end up buying a large quantity, not 12, not 24, but hundreds at a time. And it's because of the business owners that shop there. Well, I believe the business owners are paying more attention than the GDP to what's happening. So if you see it first at Costco and Sam's, that would be, in my world, a leading indicator as to what is to follow by the GDP. And that is what Guineith is talking about. She's saying that the panic buying has already started, and it's going to be, the GDP is going to figure it out in a couple of weeks. And then when things are in short supply, the GDP is going to be angry about that. And that's when the fistfights occur. Think of it like Black Friday on steroids. That's how I see it. Guineith?
Yeah, I'd say that pretty well knocks it on the head. The other thing is, there's a quote by Winston Churchill. Now, not everybody likes Winston Churchill, but he was somebody, and he had a set of gonads. And he initially, when he was younger, he did a lot of stupid things, but as he grew older, he decided that he was going to, start doing some good things, like fighting Adolf Hitler, for example. He spent, he first met Adolf Hitler in the 1920s. And he said, I really hope that I'm the Prime Minister and that man is the Chancellor of Germany, And Hitler said, of that meeting, he said, well, I hope that that man is not the Prime Minister of Britain when I'm the Chancellor of Germany. And it turned out, of course, that they were both the premiers of their respective countries at the same time. And the rest, as they say, is history. But Winston Churchill had a quote. Okay, he had a lot of great quotes. Go and look up Winston Churchill quotes on your favorite search engine. One of them was, people with full bellies do not riot. And you could turn that quote and flip it on its head, and you could say, well, if people who have full bellies do not riot, what do people with empty bellies do? Especially ones who lack self-control. Now, I've been homeless, I've been hungry, and guess what? I didn't riot, and I didn't go out and steal and break stuff because I've developed self-control, self-discipline. And so if we have a food shortage and, I begin to get hungry, then I begin to figure out somewhere to get food, which is what you're supposed to do. So, I might start getting creative and exploring what plants might be edible in our local area. And now I've found out what plants are edible in our local area, and I'm cultivating them. This is wild-type plants. But people don't do that. Most people don't do that. They would turn their noses up at that, and in response to their hunger, they get this energy, and they get this panic setting in on the inside of them because they're hungry, and they don't know what to do, and this is new, and they've never been hungry before. Oh, my gosh, what is going to happen? So then they go out and they decide that they're going to break something, or they're going to steal something, or they're going to, generally create havoc. Because if somebody is not used to being hungry, and if they get hungry and they've never been hungry before, the first instinctive reaction that person is going to have is going to be panic. And that is what you're seeing with the panic buying, is you're beginning to say, oh my gosh, the supply chain's breaking down. Oh my gosh, what have I got? What haven't I got enough of in the house? Oh, I better buy some toilet paper. And I look at that and I shake my head and I laugh, because why is that the first comfort that everybody thinks of? People think that toilet paper is a necessity. There wasn't even any such thing as toilet paper before World War II. Nobody had toilet paper before World War II because it simply was not invented. Did you know that, Vincent?
Well, that's what wash rags were for, right?
There are other solutions.
Yeah, that's true. The Sears Roebuck catalog. The Sears Roebuck catalog. There was a newspaper. It leaves, yes.
But, this is it. That's the level of people's thought. They think, oh, my gosh, what am I going to do? What am I going to wipe my bottom with? Not thinking that, just 70 years ago, nobody had toilet paper. People thought up other ways to do it, to wipe their bottom. The thing that absolutely gets me is what is not flying off the shelf. Okay? What is not flying off the shelf is things like wheat bix. I don't think I've seen. This is those wheat biscuits that we have in Australia. Bags of porridge, stock powder. I think that pasta has been flying out the door. People have percent certainty the pasta shelf.
Yeah, hold that thought. Hold that thought. I've got a couple comments, and I think we can round out this discussion with your comments in mind. Class, I just want to take a moment to say thank you. And I've never met the man who I'm going to thank publicly on the air, but his name is Ted Anderson. And of all the supervisors, bosses that I've had in my entire life, one stands out because he has never said, do this or don't do that. Not one word toward that, never. And the best bosses I've had just let me loose. No direction whatsoever has come from Ted Anderson. And I want to say thank you. And I absolutely mean this, because he is allowing me to say whatever I want to say. No rules, no regulation. The rules that we have here at USA Prepares are decency and honesty and no profanity. Those are my rules. And anyone who violates those gets thrown overboard. But Ted Anderson has been very, very kind to me, extremely kind. He's allowed me to stay on this network for years, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, Ted Anderson. I wanted to add a couple dots to this discussion that Guineith and I are having. In 1986, in the United States, in the state of Pennsylvania, in the city of Philadelphia, there was a municipal workers' strike. The municipal workers happened to be people like the trash collectors. That's part of the municipal workers group. They walked off the job for 20 days. They walked off their job for 20 days. And there's a reason why I'm telling you this. It relates to the coronavirus and what could happen. When these workers walked off for 20 days, about 20,000 tons of trash piled up. That's an enormous amount of trash. Trash was piled up as high as people's heads along between the sidewalk and the street. You couldn't see people walking on the other side of the street. Even if there were no cars, you couldn't see because the trash was piled so high. It was rotting, it was stinking, and it was like a petri dish for disease. It literally happened. Now, here's my question. So as this coronavirus continues spreading, propagating, infecting, are the people who handle the trash going to say, I'm not going to work? Honey, I'm not going to go to work today because if I handle that trash, people are blowing their noses and they're coughing up blood and they're spitting, and they put it in their trash bags, and the bags rip, and I don't want to get it from touching these bags or picking up the loose trash or handling the trash cans or whatever it may be. They may say they're not going to do it. Now what? Now, for us here at the farm and for Guineith, it's not a problem whatsoever because we'll just burn it. But it used to be that you could go to the store and they had these brown bags. And you would put your cans and your bread and whatever else you bought, your jars, your bags, bottles, whatever it was that you bought from the store, you put it in these brown bags, these supermarket bags. And you take them home. And then you fold up those bags and you'd save them to put your trash in. And then you put those bags in the trash cans. And somebody would come pick it up. Well, if you had paper bags today, and if we didn't have so much plastic in the trash, you know, the plastic bags, the plastic jars, plastic bottles, plastic caps, you could burn it. Well, what is going to happen with all these pieces of used Kleenex, paper towels, bodily fluids on paper products that are thrown out? What's going to happen to that? Do you think that the trash people are going to say, you know, I'm not going to touch it? And if they don't touch it, is it going to pile up? And if they don't touch it, who is? Who's going to pick it up? And where's it going to go? Because now it's really difficult to burn your trash because you will see black smoke, choking black smoke from the plastics if you were to burn your trash. Think about that. What are you going to do about the trash if the trash pickup stops? We'll be right back. Well, class, at the top of the, at the bottom of the hour news, you just heard that Italy's going to close all its schools and universities for 2 weeks as the coronavirus death toll and corona panic continues. Italy's going to close all of its universities and schools. Now, for those who say, oh, it's no more dangerous than a common cold, including Rush Limbaugh and others, that's crazy. That's crazy. Do you really think that Italy would close all of its schools and universities for something as mild as the common cold? Do you really think so? Do you think airlines would shut down flights? Over 200,000 flights have been shut down because of the corona panic. It's real. And regardless of what the pundits say about who caused it and all of these conspiracy theories and conspiracy facts, regardless of what they say, that doesn't matter to you and me in our class. What matters is, what are you going to do about it? That's what matters. Now, pasta, you need it. If you're not buying pasta and spaghetti sauce in jars, you're not thinking. If you're not buying dried beans for bean soup, they sell it in bags with a seasoning packet. You know, mixed dried beans. You soak them in water. You wash them, rinse them off. You soak them in water overnight. You cook them for hours. And then you might want to add a can of peeled tomatoes or diced tomatoes. And then you might want to add a hamburger that is browned and put in there. And then heat it for several more hours. Maybe cook it in a crock pot. You can feed 8 people for like $3 or $4. If you don't have that, you're not paying attention. That's the kind of thing that Guineith is talking about. And we farmers, this is the way we think. This is normal to us. Absolutely normal. This is the way we behave all the time, whether there's the corona panic or not. We expect things like this to happen. It could be grid down. It could be a drought. Doesn't matter what it is. We're ready for it because of our lifestyle. But so many people wouldn't consider living like this. It's too hard. It is too hard. And nobody's making us do it. That's just the way we are. That's the way we're wired. Dried dried beans in a bag. That soup, you can get it at the Chinese factory outlet while they still have them. And pasta. And worst case, you'll have to eat it. That's the worst case. And think about your pets too, okay? Are they going to need to eat? Guineith?
Yep, that's right. And, if you have a motor vehicle, you're very, very fortunate. I can tell you what, I have a friend, I don't have a motor vehicle that works here, okay? I have a friend who helps me out with transport sometimes, and my friend is an older fellow, and, he's a military veteran, and, when we go driving out and about, we have a carcass scout. We are actually, both of us are scouting on the side of the road for carcasses. And if he sees a carcass, he says, well, that's a good one. And I take note of where it is. I will take my trike up there later, and I'll go and pick it up if it's within a few miles of home. By within a few miles, I mean within about 7 miles of home. Now, this is the sort of thing where people won't do that, especially if they don't have a car. They won't, go out and get a vehicle that they can operate without electricity, without, fuel, without gasoline, and, that has a basket that they can put freight in. And I've even considered getting some miniature horses and miniature cart. That might still be something I do in the future. But in the meantime, it's the trike. And, this is it. People say, oh, well, trikes are stupid looking. Trikes are very good. Trikes are great. And even though we live in a hilly area, you can push it up the hills and you can still carry quite a bit of freight in the basket, including a road-killed animal. You can put a road-killed animal in the basket. And if somebody sees me and, turns their nose up at what I'm doing, that's their problem, not mine. Because at the end of the day, my dogs will be fed. And even if it involves me doing a 14-mile round trip, I have been known to do 14-mile round trips to go and collect carcasses and feed my dogs. So, but people won't do that because they're all messed up in the head. They're worried about what people are going to think about them. They're thinking, oh, it smells, it's full of maggots, blah, 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 blah. Guess what? Your dog thinks that carcass smells absolutely wonderful. Your dog will love you for bringing home that maggoty, stinking carcass for it to get stuck into. Because out in nature, that's what dogs eat. And I've seen my dog, when I come home with a carcass, if they are out and about on the block and I'm coming up the drive with the carcass in the back of a trike, they are all over me. They're like teenagers with the Beatles. And I have to shout at them to get them to get the heck out of there while I get up the driveway so that I can cut it up and serve it out to them. And, because if I don't cut it up and give each dog its individual piece, if I just dump it out on the driveway, there's going to be fights because they're going to be fighting over the best bit. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Well, let me put an exclamation point on what you're saying. I used to design computer systems for lots of companies. I'm talking about dental offices. I'm talking about insurance companies, lots and lots of companies, hospitals. And we had a customer that was in the animal rendering business. And I built the network for this particular company. It's I would say it's almost a national company. And they're in many, many states. Many states. They probably have 20 offices or 20 factories. And here's what they do. If a farmer has a chicken house, and let's say there are 5,000 chickens in a chicken house and the power fails, and the fans for circulation. Now, these chicken houses are 300, 450 feet long, 40 feet wide, and they're packed wall to wall with chickens. And if the fan in the summer stops blowing, or the fans stop blowing, these are huge fans. Probably take two people to carry one fan. If the fans stop, the chickens overheat and die. Now what? Well, the farmers will call these companies, and they will come with trucks, and they will just take a front end loader, and they'll pick up all these chickens and dump them in the truck, and then the truck will take them to the factory, and that's where they're rendered. So they're put in these pots, they're ground up, they put in a meat grinder, feathers, beaks, legs, everything.
Everything.
And it's called rendering. Dead cows,
and
no problem.
Me guess, they're made into dog kibbles, what we call dog kibbles. That's those little biscuits that you feed to your dog. They come in big bags or little bags, up to maybe 30 kilos. If you've got a lot of dogs, you can get the bags maybe up to 20 or 30 kilos.
That's exactly
what
right.
happens to them, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You are absolutely, well, it's worse than that. It's worse than that. But let me just share with you the rest of the story. Now, I know it's not like I read this. I was there. I built the networks for this company. And so I was on site, and what they do is if the veterinarians have a bunch of dead animals, they killed them, dogs and cats, they go there too. Horses die. You call up the company, and they'll come with this truck, and it's got a little crane, and it looks like it's a big vat on these large trucks. They've got a little crane, and they hook the animal up to it, and they winch the animal up over into this vat because there's no top on it. And they pick them up. So they pick up roadkill, they pick up deer, they pick up all kinds of dead animals. Cows, chickens, horses, cats, dogs. And they render them. And that means they grind them up and they cook them. And if you're wondering why dog food is dog food color, brown, think of it like, what color would meat and blood and gore and guts, what color would that be if it were ground up and cooked? That'd be the color of dog food. And what they would do is they would sell it. And so these big dog food companies, and I dare them to challenge me on this, I dare them to call and say, no, that's not what we do, because that's what they do. I've seen it. I was there. So they grind this up and they make this, we'll call it protein. And they mix this protein from the rendering of ground up cooked animals, dead animals, with the corn and the wheat and whatever else they put in. And they call that protein. So if your dog food has 14% protein, that's because they add 14% of this slurry to the corn and the wheat and the rice and whatever else they extend it with. And if they want more protein, they add more of this slurry. And if they want 21% protein or 22 or 23 or 24, they add more. So now from a good steward of the earth perspective, that's great. Okay, we're reusing these dead animals. But do you really want euthanized animals that have cancer and other diseases cooked and ground up?
Not only that, Vincent.
In your dog food.
It's worse than that. Because I'll tell you how they euthanize these animals. Because many years ago, when I was living in Geraldton, I had a dog. He was an old greyhound. He was 12 years old. He'd lost his teeth and he was losing weight. And I said, okay, time for the one-way trip to the vet. And I had him for about 5 years, since he was 7, when he retired from racing. And I put him down at the vet, and the vet said, oh, you might not want to be here. And I said, I want to be here. He's my friend. And, they inject them with ketamine. So those euthanized animals are going to be full of ketamine. And I'll tell you what, we took him home. I did not allow them to take him. I said, I want to take him home. I want to bury him at home. And I took him home and I buried him at home. And that place that I buried him, nothing grew there for several years afterwards.
Guineith Isaacs is with us, and Glenn in Michigan. Thank you so much for being patient.
Hey, Vincent, Guineith, I just discovered your show about a month ago, and man, I thought you and I were ideologic twins. You know, I can't believe that somebody has common sense anymore. You know, and I've been,
it's rare.
You know, all your viewpoints that you share, I've been living these practices for probably 20 years. You know, you know what's going on with Corona right now. For example, I play in a band and I quarantined my place 2 weeks ago. Right, my band members thought I was crazy. Unbelievable. You know,
Glenn, I've received calls here at the farm, and people say, "Hey, I'm looking forward to coming over." And I've said my response is really simple. Well, the gate's locked, or you know, maybe when we unlock the gate, or maybe if we unlock the gate.
Don't knock on my door. I'll let you know once you know, things pan out. But yeah, it's still unbelievable. I mean, I have stored up on food and everything that you talk about years and years ago, you know? Mm-hmm. And the worst situation is exactly what you explained. You can eat it.
Well, Glenn, let me ask you
that. But not only that, you're saving money, you know?
Right. I bought a spare freezer for $75. It's a chest freezer, 18 cubic feet for $75. And I believe that it worked. It's a top quality. It's 33 years old, top quality. And I'm delighted with it. It's a spare in case, you know, a freezer breaks down. I'm not willing to, you know, $75 is important to me. But more important than that is survival. So that's what we did. Glenn, let me ask you this. I've asked this question to everyone who has found my phone number and called me here at the farm. What can we do to do a better job? What can we do to do a better job on USA Prepares on the Air? What do you recommend?
I don't think you should change a single thing because my perception is this, is that I've tried so hard over the years to explain these things to people. People don't listen. You're doing a wonderful job at what you're doing. You cannot convert people that do not want to be converted. It's simple. There's nothing else you can do. Your show is one of the most informative shows I've heard in probably 15, 20 years. And I'm not trying to attaboy. I'm just giving you reality. You do a wonderful job. You're so informative. You know, and I have a lot of the same, like I told you, I thought we were ideological twins. And I share with my sphere of reference this information to people I've known for a long time. They think I'm nuts.
That's why I said early in the broadcast that I am a total failure in terms of getting people to pay attention and to prepare for their own survival. Doesn't benefit me at all.
It's not your fault, Vince. We have I don't know what we have, but it's not good in this country. We have a really a GDP, as you call them. And I think it's beyond fixing.
I have to agree with you.
I think something's going to pan out, and you have to clear out the parasites. That's all there is to it, you know.
Yeah, and we'll start with the alleged representatives. Guineith, do you have any comments about what Glenn just said?
Yeah, I would say that's true, what he's just said, because, like I said, I talk to people and they just look at me like I come from another planet or something.
Yes.
And I say, well, the reason why I think the way I do is because I've been studying this for a while. But I've got a university degree from an Ivy League university where I studied, which was the University of Melbourne, where I studied environmental science and geography. I learned history in the course of my degree. I learned about pandemics in the course of my degree. I learned about epidemiology and virology and global politics and the way things really operate and how this beast system operates from the inside. Because that's where the employees of the beast system get trained, and those employees were my classmates. Because, that's one of the universities that trains them worldwide. People from the University of Melbourne who go on to have careers, they go on and work at places like the World Health Organization. You got the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute there, which is their specialist area is virology.
Guineith, we're out of time.
Institute.
Vincent, thank you for taking my call, and don't stop doing what you're doing. There are people that do benefit from it.
Thank you so much, Glenn.